In Brazil, authorities set up the fight against illegal mining on indigenous land, where many clandestine gold prospectors refuse to leave the region. In Italy, at least 59 people died and 80 others were rescued following a shipwreck on a vessel off the coast of Calabria. And also in Jordan, Israeli and Palestinian delegations agreed to avoid further violence and seek alternatives to de-escalate the tensions. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. In Peru, citizens marched in response to new calls for protests against the government of appointed President Dina Boluarte, whom they blame for at least 60 fatalities caused by the repression of police forces. Demonstrators gathered at Campo de Marte de Lima, also known as the Revolution Square, located in the district of Jesus Maria, to demand justice for those who died during the struggle for democracy. Some of the demonstrators carried in their hands the photographs of the deceased and black ribbons to honor them. These marchers were repressed by members of the National Police, who were beating the demonstrators and used tear gas against them. These actions, carried out by public forces, left a balance of at least 2 people wounded, a man and a woman, who ended up with significant injuries in their heads. And also on Saturday, 4 people were killed in the municipality of Cartago in the department of Valle del Cauca, eastern Colombia, after gunmen shot at a group watching a football match on television. It appears that the hit-and-run attack was motivated by retaliation, according to Colonel Wilson Roman Silva, deputy commander of the Valle Police. The National Police, together with the Attorney General's office, are already conducting investigations to capture the perpetrators responsible for this unfortunate event, added Roman Silva. The Institute for Development and Peace Studies, which monitors massacres in Colombia, reported that this is the 20th massacre in the South American country during the course of 2023. In Bolivia, cases of dengue fever are beginning to decrease in Santa Cruz, the epicenter of the disease, reported on Sunday the Vice Minister of Health System Management, Álvaro Terrazas. Terrazas highlighted the coordinated work that has been carried out since last week with the 3 levels of government to halt the advance of the disease. He also informed that Saturday's report shows 10,550 cases, of which Santa Cruz concentrates 74.4%, with 7,850 reports, and recall that in Santa Cruz Hospital, the capacity was expanded at all levels to facilitate the care of the sick, with the delivery by the government this week of 151 health items to strengthen the hospital response, also said Terrazas. On Sunday, the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador, CONAIE, denounced the assassination of Eduardo Mendua, who led the fight against oil companies exploiting the Amazon. The indigenous organization took to Twitter to denounce the killing of Eduardo Mendua, head of international relations belonging to the Cofán people in the province of Sucumbíos. The victim, who was one of the most visible faces of the indigenous resistance, and also he has been repeatedly denouncing the actions of the oil companies against the communities, was in his farm when hooded men shot him. CONAIE's president Leonidas Issa held Ecuador's head of state Guillermo Lasso as accountable for Mendua's murder and denounced indigenous leaders endure permanent persecution in Ecuador. And Brazilian authorities step up the fight against illegal mining on the Yanomami indigenous land, where many clandestine gold prospectors accused of unleashing a humanitarian crisis are refusing to leave the region. Teams from the Government Environmental Agency, IBAMA, and the Federal Highway Police were deployed to find and arrest those engaged in the mining activity in the protected territories. The illegal miners have been accused by the Yanomami leaders of physically abusing women, as well as polluting the rivers with the mercury they used to separate the gold from the sediments. During these operations, they captured some miners who were in an improvised camp deep in the Amazon. The government of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva issued in January a state of health emergency decree for the territories where the Yanomami tribes live.
We will now begin to neutralize these fronts in the interior. We have established the control bases to curb the logistical supply for illegal activities in the two main rivers, and now we are beginning the next phase of the operation, which is to attack these mining fronts, disrupting and neutralizing them in the most remote areas of indigenous land.
Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez confirmed his nation, together with Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, and Cuba, are preparing a regional agreement to control inflation. The agreement contemplates a summit between the leaders of these nations on March 17th. It will also establish a system to exchange sensitive products between the participants aimed at facilitating imports. The Argentine president described the exchange mechanism as a type of clearing products and mentioned as an example that if Argentina records significant increases in an item, such as clothing, it will turn to one of the partners, such as Brazil, to obtain it at a lower price for a given period in exchange for another more affordable item, locally, such as soybeans. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. At least 59 people, including children, have died after a boat carrying asylum seekers and refugees sank off the Italian coast. The vessel had set sail from Turkey several days ago with 250 asylum seekers from Afghanistan, Iran, and several other countries, and crashed on Sunday in stormy weather near Steccato di Cudro, a seaside resort on the eastern coast of Calabria. According to a statement made to the press by a provincial government official, over 59 people have been reported dead and 81 survived, of which 20 have been hospitalized. Italy is one of the main landing points for asylum seekers trying to enter Europe by sea. At least 2,836 people died in 2022 crossing the central Mediterranean, a route considered the most dangerous migrant crossing in the world. And the latest tragedy comes just days after Italy's far-right government pushed through parliament a controversial new law on rescuing refugees and migrants. The law forces rescue vessels to make just one rescue attempt at a time, which critics said risks increasing the number of drownings in the central Mediterranean. Far-right Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was elected last September, partly on a promise to stem the flow of refugees and migrants reaching Italian shores. In a statement on Sunday, she expressed her deep sorrow over the incident and the many human lives cut short by human traffickers. And now we move on to other topics. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu declared that the nation is ready to expand the military operation in Ukraine to neutralize the weapons flowing into the country from the West. The Russian minister outlined the conditions for a widening of Moscow's military operation in Ukraine, explaining that potential advances are directly tied to Western arms deliveries to Russia. or to Kiev, I beg your pardon. Russia has repeatedly urged Western states to stop pumping Ukraine with weapons, maintaining that the continuous flow of arms will only prolong the conflict rather than change its ultimate outcome. On the other hand, Kiev has repeatedly demanded more and longer-range weaponry from its Western backers, insisting that such systems are needed to push Russian troops out of the territories Ukraine claims as its own. And the Russian President Vladimir Putin confirmed on Sunday his allegations about the involvement of NATO in the conflict in Ukraine and said that the aim of Western countries is to divide the Russian Federation. The Russian president stated that NATO's arms supplies to Ukraine can be considered as participation in the conflict because the alliance does not receive money for it. Therefore, Moscow considers that the West has become a direct ally of Kiev's crimes. Putin also said that his administration is opposed to the unilateralist model promoted by the United States, in which it seeks to suppress other world power poles.
They have one goal, to break up the former Soviet Union and its main port, the Russian Federation, and then, perhaps, they will accept us into the so-called family of civilized nations, but only separately, each part separately, in order to suppress these parts and bring them under their control.
The European Union has adopted so far 10 packages of unilateral punitive measures against Russia following the special military operation in Ukraine. The packages establish restrictions against individuals or entities supporting the war or supplying Russia with drones and artillery to be used in the conflict. They have also restricted the passage through Russian territory of dual-use goods, civil and military, with 1,275 personalities and 435 Russian institutions being sent to the blacklist. The restrictions were imposed shortly before President Vladimir Putin's order on February 24, 2022, to start the special military operation. 2 days after Putin's announcement, the European Union approved the first package that included sanctions against 383 natural and 4 legal persons and 160 punishments on different economic sectors. In an interview with China's Central Television, Leonardo Panetta, an Italian expert on EU issues, said the sanctions against Russia do more harm than good, and they must reflect what it has to be done in response to the Ukraine crisis in the past year and find a truly effective way to alleviate the crisis.
For the European sanction, but if you study the history of sanction, there are a lot of books. You can find a lot of doubts on the effects of the sanction. So I don't think it's the best tool. Now Europe every 2 months they propose a new package of sanction, but I don't think that they will work as Europe expects.
And you can now watch TeleSUR English in 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. And yes, we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. In Aqaba, Jordan, the 5-party meeting which brought together delegations from Jordan, Egypt, the United States, Palestine and Israel ended with the commitment to achieving a just and lasting peace in the Palestinian territories. The agreement includes a commitment by Israel to stop discussing the establishment of new settlements for 4 months and not to legalize settlements for 6 months. It also stressed the importance of preserving the historical status quo in the holy places in Jerusalem in word and need without change, and highlighted the Hashemite custodianship's special role in Jordan. The meeting was attended by senior Jordanian, Egyptian, Israeli, Palestinian, and U.S. officials who all spoke in favor of these agreements. This is the first meeting of this kind to be held in several years. And simultaneously, groups of university students demonstrated in the city of Gaza in support of the Palestinians of the West Bank and in rejection of the meeting in Aqaba between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The mobilized students denounced that the meeting does not represent the Palestinian nation and does not protect its rights, but is aimed to end the struggle against the occupation forces and the Palestinian national unity. They also denounced that the meeting was held at a time when Israel continues to commit crimes against the Palestinians and to expand in the occupied lands. And the banks of Lebanon announced they will suspend the sector's strike and will resume work on Monday. The decision was prompted by a request from acting Prime Minister Najib Mikati to secure salaries and allow time for political efforts to address the nation's economic crisis. The strikes in the banking sector began after the judiciary initiated investigations into the country's financial elites. According to experts, the banks are mainly responsible for the economic situation in Lebanon due to the restrictions imposed on the national currency and foreign exchange. The so-called parallel market currently offers dollars at an exchange rate of 80,000 pounds for every dollar, affecting the people's purchasing power and worsening the economic and social difficulties of the Lebanese. In Nigeria, the Electoral Commission said citizens voted in some parts of the country on Sunday, following glitches that prevented them from doing so on Saturday, adding that the results of the national election will begin to be announced as of 6 p.m. local time on Sunday. Counting is already underway in the West African oil-exporting country's presidential and parliamentary elections, with the final tally expected to be ready within 5 days. However, Commission Chairman Mahmoud Yakubu told a news conference in the capital Abuja that results from some of Nigeria's 36 states will be announced Sunday afternoon. The race to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari was expected to be the closest in Nigeria's history, with the candidates from two parties that have alternated in the power since the end of army rule in 1999, facing an unusually strong challenge from a minor party candidate popular with young voters. And in this context, Mahmoud Yakubu, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, announced the official opening of Nigeria's vote counting center.
Having set the ground rules, from today, the collation center is hereby declared open until the final determination of the 2023 presidential election.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.